In this alternate timeline, during the duel with Darth Maul on Naboo, Qui-Gon Jinn narrowly avoids death. Instead of being fatally struck, he manages to evade Maul's final blow. With Obi-Wan's assistance, they defeat Darth Maul together, saving Qui-Gon's life. Afterward, Qui-Gon insists to the Jedi Council that Anakin Skywalker is the chosen one. Despite the Council's doubts, they allow Qui-Gon to train Anakin, trusting his wisdom. Qui-Gon sees in Anakin not only great power, but also a deep emotional struggle. He knows that training Anakin will require patience, balance, and a different approach than what the Jedi typically use. As they begin their journey, Qui-Gon prioritizes teaching Anakin about the living Force, focusing on being present, aware, and trusting the Force in the moment. Qui-Gon believes that with this approach, Anakin can avoid the path of darkness that others might fear. Under Qui-Gon's guidance, Anakin's training takes a different path than it would have with Obi-Wan. Instead of strict lessons on Jedi doctrine, Qui-Gon emphasizes freedom of thought and emotional control. He teaches Anakin to connect deeply with the living Force, to feel the energy around him, rather than be bound by the rigid structure of the Jedi Order. Anakin learns quickly, developing his abilities with the Force, but he is still haunted by his past as a slave and the fear of losing his mother. Qui-Gon, sensing this, focuses on helping Anakin confront his emotions head-on. Unlike the other Jedi who suppress emotions, Qui-Gon teaches Anakin how to balance his feelings without letting them control him. He believes that Anakin's connection to his emotions could be his greatest strength rather than his downfall. As Anakin grows, his bond with Qui-Gon becomes deep. He sees Qui-Gon as more than just a master. He's a mentor and father figure, something Anakin desperately needs. As Anakin progresses, Qui-Gon's unorthodox methods start to draw criticism from the Jedi Council. They are uncomfortable with the way Qui-Gon encourages Anakin's emotional growth and independence, fearing it could lead to instability. However, Qui-Gon remains steadfast, confident that Anakin's emotional connection to the Force is part of his unique destiny. This conflict comes to a head when Anakin's visions of his mother's suffering intensify. Unlike in the original timeline, Qui-Gon does not dismiss Anakin's feelings. Instead, he encourages him to investigate these visions. Qui-Gon believes that ignoring them would only create more inner conflict. Together, they journey to Tatooine to confront Anakin's fears head-on. On Tatooine, they discover that Anakin's mother, Shmi, has been taken by Tusken Raiders. Rather than letting Anakin go alone, Qui-Gon accompanies him. Together, they rescue Shmi. While Anakin is filled with rage, Qui-Gon helps him channel that emotion, using it to save his mother without crossing into violence. This experience strengthens their bond and reinforces Qui-Gon's belief in his methods. As the Clone Wars begin, Anakin has matured under Qui-Gon's guidance. He is still passionate and headstrong, but he has learned to control his emotions without suppressing them. He becomes a powerful Jedi Knight, admired by many in the Order for his unique abilities and approach. However, his bond with Qui-Gon keeps him grounded, preventing the arrogance that would have consumed him in another timeline. The Jedi Council, though still wary of Qui-Gon's methods, cannot deny Anakin's growing strength. His victories in battle are decisive, and his bond with his clone troopers is stronger than ever. Unlike other Jedi who treat the clones as soldiers, Anakin, guided by Qui-Gon's teachings, sees them as individuals with their own worth. This connection strengthens the morale of his battalion, making them one of the most effective forces in the Republic. Throughout the Clone Wars, Anakin and Qui-Gon remain close. Qui-Gon continues to guide Anakin through the chaos of war, always reminding him to trust in the living Force and not lose sight of who he truly is. As the war rages on, Palpatine's manipulation of the galaxy's events continues, but his plans to turn Anakin to the dark side are not progressing as easily. With Qui-Gon by his side, Anakin is more balanced and less vulnerable to Palpatine's influence. Palpatine notices this and begins to plant seeds of doubt about the Jedi Council instead, aiming to drive a wedge between Anakin and the rest of the Jedi. Qui-Gon, however, senses Palpatine's influence. He warns Anakin not to let the Chancellor's words sway him, teaching him to rely on his instincts and his connection to the Force rather than the words of politicians. Though Anakin respects Qui-Gon's advice, the growing power of Palpatine as the war progresses begins to weigh heavily on him. He still feels the pull of the dark side, but is able to resist it more strongly under Qui-Gon's watchful guidance. During a critical battle in the Clone Wars, Anakin Skywalker and Qui-Gon Jinn are sent on a mission to intercept a dangerous separatist force led by none other than Count Dooku, the former Jedi Master. For Qui-Gon, this is the first time facing his old mentor since Dooku turned to the dark side and became the leader of the separatists. The two Jedi find themselves in the heat of battle, their clone troopers holding back the droid army as Anakin and Qui-Gon push forward to confront Dooku directly. As they approach, Dooku waits calmly, his red lightsaber ignited, his demeanor cold and calculating. When the duel begins, it is swift and precise. Anakin's aggressive, passionate strikes contrast with Qui-Gon's more measured and defensive movements, reflecting the balance that Qui-Gon has worked so hard to instill in his apprentice. Dooku, with his practiced finesse, matches both of them, a master of combat who fights with the poise of a seasoned warrior. As they fight, Qui-Gon's mind drifts momentarily to the past. He remembers Dooku as his teacher, a man who had once spoken of idealism and the failures of the Republic. Now that idealism had been twisted into something darker. Between strikes, Qui-Gon finds moments to question his old master, asking why Dooku had chosen the path of darkness and turned against the Jedi. Qui-Gon's eyes reflect both sorrow and curiosity, while Dooku's cold smile betrays no remorse, only a deep sense of betrayal. The battle intensifies as Anakin presses forward, his emotions rising as he faces the man who has caused so much destruction. Qui-Gon, ever watchful, ensures that Anakin's power remains focused and in control. In the back of his mind, Qui-Gon can sense the subtle influence of Palpatine trying to tug at Anakin's emotions. But for now, Anakin remains steady, his trust in Qui-Gon keeping him grounded. As the duel reaches its peak, Anakin, fueled by his growing skill and determination, gains the upper hand. With a powerful strike, he disarms Dooku, leaving the Sith Lord at their mercy. Qui-Gon, still breathing heavily from the fight, steps forward and urges restraint. He reminds Anakin of the true purpose of the Jedi, not to execute enemies, but to bring them to justice. Dooku, now kneeling and defeated, looks up at Anakin, knowing that the young Jedi could easily end his life. But instead of giving in to the darkness, Anakin listens to Qui-Gon's words. He lowers his lightsaber and steps back. Dooku's defeat sends shockwaves through Palpatine's plans. The Chancellor, who had been carefully maneuvering events to push Anakin closer to the dark side, is now in a bad situation. With Dooku captured and alive, Palpatine must accelerate his manipulation of both the Senate and Anakin himself. He knows that with Qui-Gon by Anakin's side, turning him will not be as simple as he had hoped. As Dooku is imprisoned, Palpatine begins to focus all his efforts on driving a wedge between Anakin and the Jedi Council. He starts by planting seeds of distrust, whispering doubts into Anakin's mind about the Council's true intentions. But with Qui-Gon's steady guidance, Anakin is able to resist the growing pull of the dark side, at least for now. As the war continues, Anakin begins to have disturbing visions of Padmé's death. These visions deeply trouble him, and he confides in Qui-Gon. Unlike the Jedi Council, who would have dismissed these visions as attachments, Qui-Gon listens and takes Anakin's fears seriously. He teaches Anakin that the future is always in motion, and that trying to control it can lead to suffering. Rather than letting these visions consume him, Qui-Gon helps Anakin to focus on the present, reminding him that fear of loss is a path to the dark side. Together, they meditate on the visions, and Anakin finds peace in knowing that he cannot control everything. He learns to accept that the future is uncertain and to trust the Force to guide him. This emotional maturity is a turning point for Anakin, as he learns to let go of his fear of losing Padmé. Though the visions remain, Anakin no longer feels the need to control or change them, freeing him from Palpatine's grip. Palpatine grows increasingly desperate as Anakin becomes harder to manipulate. He knows that as long as Qui-Gon remains in Anakin's life, the young Jedi will never fully turn to the dark side. Palpatine begins to orchestrate events that will lead to Qui-Gon's removal, believing that without his master, Anakin will be vulnerable. Palpatine orchestrates a trap that leads Qui-Gon and Anakin to a dangerous mission on a distant planet. During the battle, Qui-Gon is severely injured. As they come back from the mission, Palpatine seizes this moment to drive a wedge between Anakin and the Jedi. He plants doubts in Anakin's mind, making him believe that the Jedi Council has purposely put Qui-Gon in harm's way to weaken him. However, Qui-Gon, even while wounded, reassures Anakin that the Council did not betray them. He urges Anakin to remain vigilant and trust in the Force. Anakin, filled with anger and fear, struggles with his emotions, but ultimately listens to Qui-Gon, rejecting Palpatine's manipulation once again. As Palpatine's plans unravel, he reveals his true identity as Darth Sidious. In a dramatic confrontation, Palpatine attempts to turn Anakin to the dark side, offering him power beyond imagination. However, Anakin, guided by Qui-Gon's teachings, resists. He sees through Palpatine's lies and understands that power for the sake of power is a path to destruction. Anakin steps back, his blue lightsaber igniting with a sharp hum. His face reflects both sadness and determination as he stares down the Sith Lord. "I will not fall to the dark side," Anakin declares, his voice steady and resolute. "I am a Jedi, and I choose the light." Realizing the conversation is over, Palpatine's calm mask cracks, and his face twists with anger. But before Palpatine can act, Anakin rushes out of the room, knowing he must warn the Jedi of the terrible truth. Speeding through the corridors of the Senate building, Anakin reaches the Jedi Temple, breathless and shaken, but determined. He bursts into the council chambers, where the Jedi Masters listen in disbelief as Anakin reveals Palpatine's true identity as Darth Sidious. Yoda, Mace Windu, and the other Jedi Masters quickly gather, realizing the severity of the threat. The time for action has come. The Jedi launch a coordinated effort to confront Palpatine at his personal quarters in the Senate building. Anakin, alongside Yoda, Mace Windu, Obi-Wan Kenobi, and other Jedi, enter the Chancellor's office, where they are greeted by the full force of Darth Sidious's power. The Sith Lord, no longer hiding his dark nature, ignites his crimson lightsaber and unleashes a torrent of lightning and rage upon the Jedi. A titanic battle erupts, with Palpatine fighting viciously, his Sith powers on full display. The office shatters around them as the duel spreads across the Senate floor. Lightning crackles, lightsabers clash, and the very air vibrates with the intensity of the Force. Palpatine's strength seems overwhelming, his fury seemingly limitless, but Anakin, strengthened by the presence of his fellow Jedi, fights with unparalleled focus and skill. Anakin engages Palpatine directly, their lightsabers crashing against each other in a blur of red and blue. Palpatine taunts Anakin, trying once more to manipulate his fear of losing Padme, but this time, the young Jedi is unshaken. The teachings of Qui-Gon have given him the clarity to see beyond his fear, and Anakin's movements are filled with the calm focus of the Force. The battle reaches its peak as Anakin pushes Palpatine back with a flurry of powerful strikes, his lightsaber moving with precision and purpose. The Sith Lord, despite his mastery, begins to falter under Anakin's relentless assault. His taunts grow more desperate as he tries to summon more dark power, but it is too late. Anakin has already made his choice. In one final decisive strike, Anakin pierces through Palpatine. He stumbles back and his face twisted with rage and disbelief as he realizes that the end has come. Anakin stands over him, the blue lightsaber glowing brightly, a symbol of the light he has chosen. With Palpatine defeated, the dark cloud that had hung over the galaxy begins to lift. As the battle concludes, Anakin stands victorious, breathing heavily but filled with a sense of peace. The other Jedi gather around him, recognizing the magnitude of what has just occurred. Anakin Skywalker, the chosen one, has fulfilled his destiny, not by turning to the dark side, but by destroying it. Yoda, standing beside him, gives a quiet nod of approval. Strong in the Force you are. Fulfilled, the prophecy has been. Anakin, though exhausted, feels a deep sense of clarity. He has embraced the light not out of fear or power, but because he understands that true strength comes from peace and balance within the Force. With Qui-Gon's teachings guiding him, he has overcome the temptation of the dark side and brought balance to the Force. The galaxy is now on the path to healing, and Anakin, now a Jedi Master, stands ready to help rebuild the Jedi Order. not as the conflicted young man he once was, but as the Jedi Master he was always meant to be. And all of that happened because of Qui-Gon Jinn. Thank you for watching, and may the Force be with you.